Yeah, and of course we start with the title and then we go into the other stuff.
Yes. Hi there. Barry and I are wondering if you have ever dealt with rejection. I have a feeling there's lots of hands going on out there because that's
Oh,
going to be our subject today. We're going to talk about dealing with rejection. Oh,
hmm oh yeah, we'll get into that deeply. So, but before that,
before that, this is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
hi Christine. Yes,
Yeah,
rejection. Hmm
rejection. It is such a big, powerful word. I listen to people use it with as if it's in 42 count font, bolded, underlined, italicized, and it feels awful. No matter how it happens, no matter why it happens, I just am concerned often that it's always huge. And so thinking about the gradations and the moderation and the other sub definitions to it, we're going to go into that today. Because if it's always huge, who would ever go out and risk dating ever? How would you even meet a new person or even write to somebody if it's all this huge, horrible thing that happens, right? Ugh.
Well, I think on that level, it's basically people oftentimes will wait until the rejection seems to subside enough and then go, you know what, I'll chance it again. And then they go out and date again, and then the pain gets renewed. But we're going to break down rejection about what it is, what it isn't, and deal with it as we get into the show. But the truth about rejection is it is something that a lot of times we set up because we make a lot of, I don't want to use the word assumption, but it is really assumption. But basically, we set up these presupposed ideas about how things are going to work out. When they don't go the way we plan, we feel rejected. Because so basically we've done is we've set up a premise or a fantasy or a falsehood. It doesn't come true, and then we get into all upset about it. So that's one of the things we want to talk about is about how making our expectations more realistic is one thing, but there's a lot more to talk about besides that.
Yes, I will second the we often it's not the truth that somebody has rejected us, even though it feels like it, even though it feels awful and hard, because true rejection certainly feels awful and hard. But setting up realistic expectations, the truth about what the first part of reaching out to somebody, talking to somebody, initially meeting somebody really means. And I think a lot of the rejection stems from, because you and I hear it all the time, I want to stop dating. I want to be in a relationship. I want to meet the person. I'm sure that's who it's going to be the next time that I write to somebody online or talk to somebody on the phone or meet them in person. So that bar is now set at this very unrealistic emotional high that I tell people, even if I'd known when I met my late husband the first time that was what was going to happen, I didn't know that was what was going to happen. And having
Mm-hmm.
a realistic expectation of, am I even going to like having lunch with him the first time? Then if it doesn't work out, then the charge is much more realistic and way smaller.
Yeah, but also the other thing also is that a lot of people look at rejection. One of the ways that rejection is perceived is getting turned down right at the beginning. And the thing about that is, which is one of the things I sort of mess with people on, is the reality is in the because I do this way I do things oftentimes is saying, okay, so you basically haven't done anything yet, and so basically you're getting upset about something you didn't have in the first place, and now you don't have it now, but nothing's actually changed, and yet you feel rejected. So the first thing is about rejection is first of all get real. Is it real experience? Because yes, if you've been in a relationship for a while and then they reject you and kick you out, that's a breakup, but it's not really rejection, it's just breaking up. But the rejection piece that happens after a few dates, especially when the reason for the rejection is something so minor you don't believe it's possible they could think that, that's a different story. And so again, there's a spectrum, so to speak, or a scale of rejectability or rejection that comes up that we can talk about more clearly.
And I think truly, as you put it, Barry, that when we get to the bottom of how we think and feel about the word rejection, it feels really personal. It it
Hmm
it always feels personal. So are we using it properly? If we don't know the other person and they don't know us, we're just barely scratching the surface. And if it turns out for one or the other person, you're not each other's person, you're not rejecting the person. You're saying, oh, I've discovered something that doesn't make me want to move forward, whatever it is. But it's a tiny little part of you. It's not the whole person. So I try to get people, could you think about they're rejecting this tiny part of you and they can't separate it. So we're not ever going to use that word, because in that instance, it can't be separated for them. So they're just saying, no, thank you to a part of you. I mean, I've mentioned before, I think, that I went out with this early after my divorce. I went out with this really nice guy who was really into me, and we did so many fun things together. And when it came, I don't know, like the third date or so, and he wanted to kiss me, I went, I can't do it because you look like my dad. It was so bizarre. I tried for 3 dates to get over it. And I just went, I closed my eyes. You still look like my dad. It was too weird. Everybody's got their thing, and that was my thing. So how sad, because he couldn't do anything about it. And there was nothing else I didn't like about him, but I couldn't do it. So we all get our thing that has nothing to do with him as a person. I wasn't rejecting him at all. I think he did feel rejected, but I really knew I was not rejecting him as a person. And so how do we separate that? It sometimes is a little easier if you're doing the say no rather than the person that's being said no to.
Yeah, because the thing is, if we really were emotionally mature and conscious and being able to do this sort of stuff, when we are choosing not to be with somebody, to change it language a bit, ideally we'd let them down with some level of care, realizing it's like, it's not, it's not you, it's me sort of thing, but in a more, not so simplistic as that, but saying, the truth is that what I'm looking for, this isn't a match for, and it's not about them, it's about what I'm looking for. But most people look at it, you're wrong, you're not the one, and then sort of kicking to the curb type thing. And that's where rejection comes up so easily, because most people, unfortunately, aren't very educated or very self-aware enough to respond to that conversation in a cleaner way.
And the person receiving it can't hear it, so has nothing to do with you as a person. It has to be with me as my preference. I mean, I've met men for the first time who turns out were so religious, and I really admired it, but I am not their match for that. I mean, I'm much more spiritual. I have lots of religious beliefs, but I wouldn't be a match for them in the way that they practice their religion. And I admire it. We're just not a match. We would both be unsatisfied with what the other person needed from us. Right. So I think in those instances, because I really work on my words, but we have no control over the other person's feeling, they were disappointed and wished it was different. It seemed that they didn't actually feel the rejection word. But it's a challenge to not say what you really mean and not have it land in the rejection way. Oh, it's such a challenge.
Well, the thing is, I think what happens for a lot of us, both genders, is that when we get into the matchmaking phase or the first date phase, or that sort of meet somebody exciting, somebody new, something impossible, we start creating fantasies. We start running these tapes or these beliefs about what's possible, what can happen. So we're already building, a future for the next 5 years with this person we haven't met for the first time yet. And so we get together with them, and if something goes awry, and one of the people chooses, I'm not going to work, breaking up and everything else. And so our dreams just come tumbling, crashing down around us that we thought were going to happen. And I'm being very, expressive about this, but that's what people do. They create this fantasy, this illusion, because they haven't actually done anything yet. But then they get upset about it because that belief they just set up, this whole vision, fell apart. And of course, they start, instead of just going, oh, that was my mistake, I shouldn't have done that, they go, it was because of them and they were wrong. And so they rejected me, so I'm upset. And so they get the upset because stuff that goes on. And it's really not a good recording or a good place to be.
So certainly one of the things that I teach over and over and over and over and walk my talk is that until you have actually met a person, even if they've got a great profile, even though you've had a great conversation, you have to have an emotional investment of 0. It has to be 0.
Yep.
Because then when you meet them, there's things that you're going to need to learn about them, not only more talking, but how does it feel to sit with them? Do you feel comfortable? Do you want to see them again? How does it, does the interaction in person feel as good as it was on the phone? Because sometimes people can get so excited on the phone and then it can be a letdown in person. So keeping your emotional zero till you've met them. And then if you do decide that you want to see them again, you get to be an emotional one, because what we're talking about is people that Zoom to 15 or 27 or 38, because the problem with that is they have not earned the right for you to be that emotionally attached.
Yeah.
We don't think of it that way. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. I think we both should just keep vetting the other person over time. So then if you want to see them again, they get to be a one. And then you see them again, and you now have more things. You have your list of things you need to find out about them. And you keep seeing, how do you feel? And do you want to see them a third time? Then they get to be an emotional two to you. And they're like, oh, it's really hard. It's, boy, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I really want to have the fantasy. Great. Be really conscious of that. And be a great big one. Be a great big two. Because if you consciously think about the number, I have to tell you, it's something I have to practice as well. You make yourself stay in the, well, what else do I need to learn before I create this fantasy, before I think of us times down the road? Have I asked them one of the challenging things about what it is I need and want, and can they do it? I got my very first no recently about, would you open my door all the time for me? And he said, no. I've never had somebody say no before. Yeah, he said, all the time. I said, yeah, I really like it. He goes, do you understand how antiquated it is? I went, uh-huh. He says, then why do you want it? I said, because I like it. Everybody has it. You have things, you tell me the things you like. I will see if I can do them. This is something I really like. And he said, no. I know. I said, this is good. It's probably my comeuppance. I've been so kind of cocky that it's always, everybody said yes and you said no. So now I know there's somebody out there that will say no. So that's when you say, is this the hill you're going to die on? Is there more of a conversation? Yes. And wow, that was kind of a big thing. So if you keep asking the things that are important to you, who knew, and find out where they stand on it, it will also help you keep your emotional level in check.
Oh, yeah.
It was a shock, Barry, I have to tell you.
Well, I can understand totally. But actually speaking to that, though, the thing about keeping an emotional energetics maintained and managed to a certain degree, another thing that comes up is the fact is what we do badly, which I know I do myself and I've done before in the past, and I'm sure most people have done this, although they'll deny it, is that when you meet somebody, you get so enamored by who they are. And it's usually by one or two things, not even everything, but certain things will get your attention, that you'll become blind to things. And so I had this happen. This is going pre-pandemic, in fact. When I met this woman on dating app, we went up to meet her, quite a drive to go meet her. But seeing her in person, because she was so like perfect in so many ways, mostly physically, just to be blunt.
The sundress lady, I remember the sundress lady.
And being around the right age and everything else, it was a really good match. But the thing is, I didn't know quite a lot of things about her that I didn't find. Some I found out later, some I didn't even know afterwards because it broke. Because she basically turned it down pretty quickly after the date was over. And we had a nice conversation. It was really wonderful. And I think it's because I hadn't been out for so long, like meeting somebody. All my excitement was brewing. All my possibilities and excitement and all that sort of kept coming up. And so what I realized I'd done is I created this whole perfect arrangement of what's possible with this woman that she didn't really fit anyway, because ultimately we would not match up on so many other levels. But in that moment, it was perfect. And so I built this whole illusion and fantasy ultimately, because we were so connected. Yes, it was a turn on. It was very physical, the energy we had together. Just, we met in daytime, so it wasn't like an evening date where we didn't see each other. We saw each other clearly and went out, for coffee and lunch and talking. And in a way, I had actually set myself up to be rejected in a way, because there's something I'd done myself without realizing. I mean, it's like I did things for myself without realizing it that worked out really well for me ultimately. I kicked myself afterwards initially because like, damn, I shouldn't have done that. But it was perfect in a way because it gave me the out. But the recognition was that I created a false image about who she was. because I took all of my ideas about this woman and put them into one bucket, basically, which was an illusion. And so I know. So what you said about the 1, 2, 3, I didn't do it then, but I know better now. Again, and I keep learning. And this is like I'm still learning always. New dates and new learning opportunities. And so that thing of a rejection, it becomes sometimes, if you can do it the right way, as a tool to understand versus a feeling to be upset about. Because rejection can feel so painful, and I've been there many times, how it can be like suffering and wounding, and there's something wrong with me, and all the self-lamenting we do and beating ourselves up with, it's unending if we're not careful.
Yes, we all have our Achilles heel. I had it last year. We just need to keep practicing. I liked so much about what he does. And to this day, I will say I really like what he does. I will support it forever. And so I got too high in my numbers without learning more about who he was as a person. I said, oh, but it was funny because one of my friends said, well, you always talk about how you don't take the coach on your date. So it was okay, right? I go, yeah, because I leave her home on purpose because I don't want to coach people on my date. So, okay, I give myself grace about that. I got very high in my numbers and then learned more about who he is as a person, which we're so not a match about that. And it's funny how I could then, so I had a different friend go, oh, you really do like what he does. I go, I will never not, no matter what. I can't imagine not. And wow, we are so not a match for who he really is as a person for me. And I am not for him. So I went, oh, well, yes, I do talk about how I did it before a long time ago and how my clients are doing it now. And I go, okay, 2024, I learned it again. I got a good reminder. So, you and I walk our talks all the time and catch ourselves doing these very, very human things. And we have our Achilles heel because admiring somebody for what they do and who they are is a very high priority for me. I mean, my husband was both of those in spades, and stuff would come up and I'd go, and then he'd answer and I'd go, wow. So that's what happened with this. I got so carried away with, I really admire, and I got him together, and I thought they were together, and then I really did have to learn. I'd not learned how much to separate them. I've now gotten really clear about that. Woof. It was a challenging lesson because I liked him, I thought.
Well, that's the thing. So it's like almost an aphrodisiac, because it's that sort of so intoxicating and so exciting, because you meet that thing, that's that thing I want to have. And then you sort of become oblivious again to the other periphery things that don't fit. And so being willing, and this takes a lot of courage, absolutely, if you're on this same boat we are in this sense, you go say, okay, let's put that on the side for a second. Let me just see everything else about this person that I have been ignoring because I'm so enamored by this one thing that I need to step back and have a better look. And that's when you start going, maybe not. Yeah. And it's funny because I still remember that woman from, again, this is going back 5 years, 6 years ago now. I do remember how attractive she is and all the things about I liked her, but also I'm very aware of what she had going on that didn't fit me. So it's like very clearly I walked away gracefully. Ultimately, wasn't what I wanted, and the drive home was not because of a long drive from where she was. I felt that rejection, upset, disdain, and all this, and also the other thing that goes on. I know for me, and other people may have this rejection is, what could I have done differently? What could I have said? What could I have done? Or what shouldn't I have done that I did do that would mess things up? All these little things that we become hypercritical about ourselves, of like what we missed or what we didn't do, so that would have changed the outcome of what's already gone past, which you can't go back in time. So just for next time, like you said, it's like learn the lesson for the next time, because you can't go back and fix what happened before.
Yep. If we could just give ourselves grace about that. We go through the morning, we go through the recrimination, and then we go, okay, this is really, I got some of what was really important to me. I am not going to discount that. Obviously, I'm calling in the right stuff over there. I just need to be even more clear about who they are as a person. And so I had to get okay with it. But, we both liked that feeling, and we're not going to turn down that feeling when we have it. We just need the whole package.
Yeah, next we got to listen to our own advice.
Our tails go, yeah. So we're getting ready to go to our commercial break. And if any of this is resonating with you and you'd like to get a hold of Barry or I, one of the ways to do it is to go to my website and www.theperfectcatch.com and set up a complimentary call with me, or to send me a personal email at christine@theperfectcatch.com.
Yeah, and likewise, I have my website you can go to as well. So you go to barryselby.com, and on that page, I've also got a link to my my calendar, so you can get a conversation with me. And you fill out a form and set up for that. And there's a lot more stuff to talk about at the end of the show, but just to get those tips so you can get support from us directly. You can also directly email me at barry@barryselby.com, and we'll tell you all about the other ways you can reach us at the end of the show. So just something to get you started.
Yep. We'll be right back.
See you. Yep. Enjoy the commercial.
Mm-hmm. Hi there, we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and today we're talking about how to deal with rejection, because it's hard and it's sad and heartbreaking. And we were talking in the first half about how frequently we feel rejected when it isn't really a rejection of our whole person. And then what I hear, if people let somebody doesn't write back to you because you wrote to them on their profile, there's so many reasons that have nothing to do with you. They might not even be, I have clients, those profiles are still out there 6 years later and they don't pay, they canceled their account, but I see their pictures go by. That if you keep thinking it's this stab in your heart, I'm a bad person rejection, why wouldn't you give up? People get discouraged and frustrated and stop using the app, stop going to meetups, think that the dating world sucks and there's only bad, horrible people. That if you do the regulating, I loved how you energetic regulating. I love that. I'm going to so use that way. If you look at your energy and is it really the truth about what you're feeling? Because we all feel kind of 12 when it happens, or maybe more like 4. And so we need to check in and say, oh yeah, baby, you feel bad. And is it really this? Is it really this big? Because most of the time it's not. And that's how you keep yourself going and keep yourself regulated, because ultimately, if you really want to find love, it's just part of the process, right?
Absolutely. I think one of the I won't say the problems, but one of the patterns we tend to do as people is we tend to set up a fantasy of what we want to have. And then we meet somebody on a dating app, meet somebody in person, we try to plug them into that fantasy. And they 90% of the time, they're not going to fit anyway. But so the thing about it is, in a way, is like you said earlier about the level of just being a 1 or a 2 or a 3 in the different dates, is when you go out with somebody, don't plug them into that fantasy. It sounds so easy to do. But basically, to understand this person you're meeting is new friend, new connection, new possibility, and then see where it goes. Because the thing is, the rejection can happen definitely after the first 2 or 3 dates. So don't build your fantasy on sand, because it might collapse if you don't put it on solid ground. So build it once you know you've got something to build on. So if you meet somebody and you go out with them a few times and you start to build a real relationship, and we talked about breakups and stuff before in other episodes, that's when you start looking at, okay, well, this is what I want to have in my life with a partner. Does this person fit that? And can we entertain that? But it's like, once you know that you're in a relationship, and of course, that's one of those conversations you have down the road. It's like, are we dating? Are we in a relationship? Where are we, sort of thing? Because you can't assume that either. You have a conversation about it. But certainly with the rejection piece is one of those things where it's almost like taking test drives and then not buying the car. It's being willing to just test drive to know the features. And because there's 1 or 2 things that don't work for you, be willing to say, you know what, I'm taking it back. I'm not going to take it out for a drive this time. I'm not going to buy the one this time. I mean, I'm using that analogy for an idea, because we sometimes think about the fact that when somebody rejects us, you know, the world comes crashing down. The truth is, there were certain features that didn't fit, and that's okay. Because what I like to say is, you know, that there are many possibilities of dates out in the world. There are so many people on the planet. So if one person doesn't match you and rejects you, the great news is there are going to be some other people out there who are better matches that won't reject you. So you'll be willing to walk away.
Yes. Because I've used the car analogy. I like that one, that if you go test drive a bunch of cars, would you really use the word reject, or it's just not your preference? There's more things that you would like. And maybe you didn't know till you went. You test drive a bunch of cars and you're like, oh, I didn't even know I like that kind of a seat, or I needed that much power, or I needed, a bigger room or a smaller room, that you don't really know. That's really the point of first meetings, is to see learning what does fit me, what do I like, what things are coming up that I went, wow, yeah, I really do like that, I've confirmed it. Oh, I really don't like that, I've confirmed it. And I didn't know about this thing, whether I liked it or I didn't. And then if it turns out there's a couple things you like and not enough things to hold your interest for the next time, it's not really a rejection for them. Because it's always easier to look at what you're doing to the other person than have it done to you. To say,
Right.
you're not really rejecting them. If you could change your way of thinking about how you say no thank you to somebody else, it might help you feel better or less bad about when somebody says no thank you to you, because you're just not each other's person. And hopefully you've gotten even more clear about, look what's now coming that I really like. Look what I need to ask for differently, or who do I need to be differently, or where do I need to be looking differently if I want something different in my life. And so if you it as like you're sampling things at a buffet, sometimes you go to a buffet and there's all this food you've never tried. Well, I love trying everything a little bit to see. I've never tried that before. Yeah, I really don't like that. Or, oh, I never knew I liked that. And so think about the first meetings, the first communications, the first 2 or 3 meetings. And I love that you say, get to the point where one of you needs to be brave and nobody wants to go first. Gosh, I really am enjoying spending time with you. I'd really like to see if we could work on a relationship. I'm ready to not date anybody else. What about you? And they might not be. They might not be in the same place. They might not be thinking the same thing. Yes, that
Yeah.
would feel hurtful, and that could feel like a rejection because you've been brave. And I applaud myself and other people when you say this, because it's helping you out loud confirm to yourself and anybody else you believe might be listening to, this is what I really want. More of that, please.
Yeah. That's the thing is because, let me put this. If you really look in the mirror honestly and look at yourself, you're going to reject other people.
Mhm.
So it's only fair, I'm going to say this very carefully, that you get as good as you give. Not saying
Yeah.
it's a good thing you're going to reject other people, so you're going to reject it back. But the reality is, when you go on dates, it's for both people. It's an exploration. It's a possibility. It's a test drive. So you don't know what you don't know about each other. And like I said earlier, it's like, you can get very enamored about one thing. For me with cars, it's like, how do they drive? But the seats may suck, or the suspension may be a problem. It's like there's different things. The same thing in relationships. Again, I get equated to people to cars, but
Mhm.
about the people's styles, like how they look may be one thing, but how they think and what their beliefs are major points of the conversation. Because the thing about relationships is, as time goes by, especially as we're older, our bodies aren't necessarily the same way as when we were 20. So if that's what you're focusing on, that may be disappointing. But if you know how they think and what they believe and how they act, and it becomes complementary to what you want, that's a good starting point. So where you build your collaboration is important as well as where you start, but also what you do with it.
I like comparing it to cars for most people. Some people love cars, so their heart really does get involved, but most people, their heart isn't
Hmm.
quite as engaged. So if you
Hmm.
think about, could you be a little less emotional about cars? Treat it the same way, at least in the beginning, because we really do want to get our heart engaged, because we want to be done and we want to be in love. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to skip all the getting to know you steps, all the test driving steps. And even if, because sometimes it does, very rarely, things move very quickly and you both know the other person's your person, you still need to get to know them to find that out. I mean, have a bunch of long conversations where you talk about everything, talk 3 days in the week and see each other the other 2 days, and that you really do make the commitment to spend that many hours together learning it. But what I hear is, yeah, we went out once a week and it's been a couple months and I'm madly in love with them. why? What did you learn? I want to know, what did you learn? And well, we both like pizza and, Mel Brooks movies and have kids the same age. And it's okay, good things, not enough. Not enough to let your heart be completely open and engaged. You haven't talked about religion or travel or finances or holidays, especially if you both have kids. There's so many things that could, do they want to open the door for you every time?
Exactly.
Exactly. And if it's a really big deal for both of you, that's opposite, more conversations are going to be needed before you can move forward.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, and it's just a direct personal story myself, just on dating apps. Last night I was on one of the apps and I just saw this woman on the dating app that I really want to talk to because she said things in her profile that are exactly the things I talk about.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay, this is fascinating. I just want to talk to them. Doesn't mean it's going to be a match, but it's like so rare for that to be spotted. Most people, this is true. Just another conversation. We had another episode about dating profiles, but most people don't post stuff on dating profiles that are really that meaningful. It's all the frivolous stuff, having coffee on a Sunday morning or going for walks on the beach. It's like, no, but when she said certain things in her profile about like her beliefs and who she studies with, I'm like, we need to talk. So that became exciting. But again, I'm very clear that the rejection factor is part of the conversation up front because I know that that's not enough to qualify it as, okay, we're going to be in love forever sort of thing. But it's exciting and enjoyable to meet somebody. Again, we haven't spoken yet. This is purely just a like on a profile and a message. But it could be something great. It might not be. But the reality is, first of all, it reassures me that there are people out there like that, which is good as well. But secondly, that is a good starting point because at least this conversation can be had that's worthwhile because previous dates I've been on over the last couple of years, which have been few and far between, just to be transparent. But there have been ones where the conversation, I could not talk about certain things that having to become a teacher because they weren't on the same page. They didn't understand what I was talking about. And that's frustrating to a degree. It also means that I'm willing to walk away because I've had it happen so many times now. It doesn't bother me so much. And one of the joys about doing this work is that I get more trusting in my own values and my own choices. So I don't feel invested right up front as easily as I used to. And that's one of the things about going on dates. If you're not in a relationship and you are dating quite a lot, is not to be what's the one I'm looking for? Not to be laissez-faire about it, but to be clear about what you're looking for. And if they don't match, be okay with that. And so you don't sort of string them along. You don't make them feel rejected. You become clear. It's like this doesn't line up. And so the sooner you get to that point of knowing which way you're going, the better, because you have more ownership of what you're really valuing. And again, you're not just focusing on one thing, you're focusing on the whole enchilada, so to speak.
Oh yeah, you and I have that same Achilles heel. Boy, if their profile talks about inner work and they want to put up their Myers-Briggs letter and I just am like, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. And it's funny how everybody generally is looking for somebody that would be a romantic connection. And it's interesting to go, ooh, not that, and still this. And can we now shift? Because that's been a challenge where I seem to be able to do it easier. They really have their mind made up, and sometimes they can't talk to me if they're too far away. I'm like, but we're gonna talk on the phone because we like intellectual conversation. Okay. But guys, you are much better about keeping track of your time, money, and energy. I really respect that. It just gets frustrating when I'd love to have a conversation like that with a man that it's not paying me because I get those conversations, but I am in the teacher mode with my male clients. So that's been an interesting thing. So the other thing is when they're now more of them, especially on Facebook dating, they can sometimes go look and see at least what I do if we've got mutual friends. And to see where the litmus test is, well, does that mean you're looking for a client? That's the biggest thing that happens. Does that mean you can read my mind? Are you going to be really critical? And I'm okay getting asked those questions because I'll answer them. But it's so few and far between when they're intrigued. What an interesting profession. Tell me more about that. I'm like, oh, you're secure. You don't assume I'm going to be terrible. And maybe you haven't had too many terrible women too. I mean, that's another litmus test. So when somebody says no, thank you, there's all these reasons that I'm not going to change who I am So I really can't feel rejected because it's who I am and it's who
Yeah.
you are. And if people could own that more, I think the rejection factor might get a little less. What do you think?
Well, yes. And the other part too is about being honest. One of the biggest failings people have when they go on dates is they don't tell the truth.
Yep.
And so if you know, like if you're feeling right off the top, it's not going to match, be willing to own that. Now, I understand for women, it's more challenging because they cannot necessarily walk away easily without feeling like they were indebted somehow, or, they want to feel safe. And damn, I wish all men would understand that women need to feel safe. That's a whole other conversation we've had before as well. Yeah. Okay. That's a separate conversation.
You need to go there. Too big.
Yeah. But recognizing the fact is that we don't necessarily trust our own intuition, our instincts, even just our gut feelings that come up as soon as we meet somebody. Go, no.
Oh yeah.
I would rather, and I've had it happen. Have had it before where basically we had a date and we met up, and as soon as we met up, it's kind of like no, okay, and walked away, sort of thing. But that's rare.
Yeah.
So sometimes you go through the motions. Understandably, that's one reason why I've recommended so many times about having a coffee date during the day as the first way to meet. Call it a pre-date, because it's better to meet somebody on a low investment chance to say, okay, this is worth worth spending more to go out on a real date with, because I like so far the groundwork. Because as we said at the beginning, we do oftentimes base our relationship connection on one thing only, or our attraction on one thing only, which is wonderful to a degree. But if we don't have enough substance, we're going to end up feeling rejected, or we're going to be rejecting the other person sooner or later. So why not back the vehicle up, so to speak, and do the pre-date where you meet somebody for ice cream, coffee, whatever that is during the day, where you can actually get to know them and you can really feel that person's natural energy versus their setup energy for the first date, where they're all proper and perfect, sort of thing. Because the other challenge too is why I hate first dates as being the right requirement, because you're not having to put on an act and a presentation. This isn't who you really are. So then you meet somebody and you have this picture of them who they're not, and you wonder why there's rejection later on. It's like, no. So make it easier for yourself, so you don't have to be rejecting. You can just be, you know what, this is not working out, and give you ideally a mutual parting of the ways.
You and I teach people to be authentic.
Yes,
we do. We're good at that. So if you would like to learn more about Barry and I, the best way to learn about me is to go to my website. Again, it's www.theperfectcatch.com. You can, as I said, go down. I forgot to mention, it's What's Holding You Back questionnaire. Click on that. You can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. And if you scroll to the bottom of my website, the homepage, you can hook on all my social media, which is Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube, to see all the replays of you could binge on our YouTube videos that we've done. You can also join my mailing list to find out more about me and what I'm doing, and get the instant replay of our podcast. And you can now also download my ebook. It's at the top of my website. It's a dating advice book. I'm really excited to have you download it. Thank you. And to tell me what you think, there's now a way to review it after you've read it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You have to go ask those robots to do it like you did.
Nothing wrong, robots.
So tell people how to look you up on social media, Barry.
Did you tell them about your social media links where they can find you?
Yes.
Okay, making sure you did. Don't miss
out. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. You know I can forget sometimes, but I did really remember today.
Yeah, because you went straight to the book, and I was like, did I miss something? Apparently I did. Yeah. Okay. So the way you can find me, as I mentioned in the break as well, is you can go to my website. And on my website are 3 things I want to talk about on the homepage. One of which I mentioned, which is you get on my calendar, we have a conversation. There's a form you fill out, and we can get set up and have a conversation about where you are and where you want to go, and maybe how you're dealing with rejection and what you can do better in the future. At the bottom of the screen is a link to my email list. So you can just jump in there if you want to become a follower of my work outside of these conversations. Definitely do that. And in the middle of the screen is a link to my newly revamped and revised relationship readiness assessment, which is the quiz. And you go to barryselby.com/quiz if you want to go there, because that is the best way to know if you're really ready for a relationship. So if you're single right now, take the quiz and find out where you are and what's going on. There's some feedback on there, and also an invitation to have a conversation with me after that. So in fact, if I recommend, before you sign up for a conversation with me, is take the quiz first. Recommendation. Also, I have another quiz which I've launched, and I'm actually putting out some marketing materials for that very soon, which is the 7 pillars of self-relationship. because for most people, when they're looking for love, they're not looking at their own relationship with themselves. And a lot of my work has been really focusing now on your self-relationship, your self-image, who you are, how you look in the mirror. And so if you go to my, and it's not on my site, you have to go to, sorry, it's not on my navigation, but it's right at the bottom of the screen there. You go to barryselby.com/self-quiz. That is my self-assessment that you can take for yourself and see who you are. That also has a workbook. You can download a PDF that gives you a lot of content and you work on yourself, and also some invitations to a conversation with me as well. In addition to that is my book, not a free giveaway. Sorry, you have to buy the book. But if you go to the book page, which is, you can go in the navigation, go to my book page. On there is, as we were hinting at earlier about robots, there is an AI generated review of my book by two very professional sounding voices that are AI generated. There's about a 12-minute conversation about my book. They do a discussion, like a critical review of my book. So before you even buy it, you can actually hear from two authorities, in quotes, that discuss my book in great detail. So
Very
that's something. Yes, and for social media, you can go to all my social media is my name, except for a couple of places. So it's Barry Selby on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't do X anymore, on Blue Sky and on Pinterest. And if you want to go to find me on Instagram or Threads, it's the real Barry Selby. So you can find me all over the place.
And I wanted to say, Barry and I are so grateful that you spend your time with us, because we know your days are really full. And so it's really an honor. So if you want to watch us live, it's here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And then you can also, if you want to watch us on TV or on your computer, you can watch us on Roku and share it with all your friends. And how can people listen to us when they're out and about, Barry?
Sure. Well, and by the way, also, you can see us on replay on YouTube, because these shows do stay up there if you want to watch us there, by the way. So watch on YouTube as well. But audio-wise, which is great if you're out in the world driving, shopping, biking, whatever you're doing, we have our audios are now up on our podcast platform. So on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and Amazon, I think is the other place where they have the podcast recordings. You can Let's Talk Dating show on there, and you listen to us live, or should say listen to us in archive, because there's 220 plus episodes wherever you are in the world. So take us with you.
And we're so grateful if you like and review and share it with your friends who might be having interest in learning about how to have better dating and relationships for themselves.
Absolutely.
And so we'll be back next week with an interesting subject. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Same thing. See you next week.
Bye for now.
See ya.